So here is our 2007 Chevy Cobalt. We are excited. She is perhaps, as they say, rusty, crusty underneath, but up front in the wheels, she's still pretty tough looking. So again, under the hood, these little 2.2 Ecotec motors, I love them. The Cavaliers, these Cobalts, they're just a tough, take a lot of heat motor. The only kind of negative, again, is that big air box, but as long as you can keep from being pressed back, should be all right there. So you can see we got the front plastic bumper off. The headlights already off. Again, I always suggest taking these off if they're not damaged carefully. You might throughout the summer if somebody hit a deer or maybe has some headlights go bad. We already got the lines looped, sold the core support, and I usually like to loop them with the Cobalt anyway. So I said, hey, I think I sold it for 80 bucks, the core support. So getting that net zero, or net down to zero, I should say, for the total. Just got the glass out today. You can see pretty painless. The door is real easy. Those rear windows, man, oh, they're annoying. Those side windows, just get them out. I end up just breaking them, and then I just like I did with my big windows in the front and in the back. After I shatter, I just go around with a chisel and get the rubber off. But yeah, inside is completely empty now. Just got the seat sitting in there. Got a little bit of excess glass in the back to pick up as well as there. I didn't do yet, but we got her up on the car ramps here as we are going to drop that that stock tank, rather, as again these stock lines are rusted out good. And again, she's body wise like not really a lot of rust. You see a lot of rust. You can see a little bit of a patch job there by someone, but oh baby, right in the kind of where the seats end there, that little cubby. And then right here especially, you can see there, I bet I could put my foot through there if I stepped right there. So we're going to be probably going to use those for the tank, my gas tank that is. And I'll probably put the battery box there, but I might switch it. We'll see here. But we are going to drop that stock tank so that we can smash her all the way in. And with our rebar being the tank and battery box being well inside, no issue there. So pretty simple. We just got to detach the main fuel line here, which I believe is just this one guy here running off the motor. So that is the next step up. I'm going to double check that. So made a lot of progress lately. Black 07 Cobalt starting to shape up into a good looking derby car. So we got the glass mostly all swept up, just a little bit of kind of excess in there after I swept out the top. And now we're ready again to dive in underneath. So we're going to take the muffler off here from toward the middle front of the car, and then we'll cut just the little rubber pieces. There's one. But the main event, as I got my jacks there and even got my little jack over here as well, is the tank. So again, the two straps, and you can see how she is rusted bad back here. Got a bunch of wires there that are kind of, looks like something rubbed against it, or maybe something ate it, as this thing sat for a year before I bought it almost. But we're gonna just get up under and drop it. We'll put the jack underneath it so we can kind of catch the tank and slowly lower it down. And then I'm gonna try to carefully unplug, if the wire and everything's good, at the fuel cell of the tank, because I might use that fuel cell if mine goes bad in my stock derby tank, if it's in good shape. Oops, there's going to camera. If not, we'll just get rid of it. So we're gonna drop the tank so we can hook up our derby tank. And there we have it. We have our muffler cut off right behind the motor. We'll cut off now our Cadillac converter so we can scrap that. There's the back end of the muffler, and then the tank came out pretty easy. I see it's actually nice on this one. It's the first I've dropped one that has this return line and the main line shown there, instead of you having to try to figure it out. So I was like, oh, that's nice. And again, so let me just unscrew and pop it out. I don't need that, but I think I might cut out around it and just keep that with the wiring in case I need to have another fuel cell, as I run a lot of 4 cylinders in Cobalt. So there we go. And underneath, again, she is rusty crusty, as they say. And just to show underneath here, she is really rusty. I knew it was rusty. Again, up front, pretty clean and good looking at the control arms, at the strut and all that. I mean, as much as I rusted out old car could be. You can see now where the tank was, all that room again in front of the rear axle there. But like this stuff right here, it's just like brittle. I mean, again, I could jump in right behind the seat and put my feet through the floor easy. So hopefully, again, the rear end, my mindset is usually let the rear end take the early chaos, and then from there go, you know, nose forward when you can. Don't take the door shots. This one in particular, we do not want any side shots because they might drive all the way through the vehicle. So moving on, we're going to hook up our gas tank and its lines now. And we're winding down so we can pull it into the garage and get to the front wheels. And nice thing, just to mention real quick, with the Cobalt's little flap there under the glove compartment just pops down. There's two, I believe it was 10mm bolts bolted in here, and then just lift the airbag up, unhook it, and it's out. Then you just got the small holes there. I use a small piece of 9-wire to get the airbags out there. So we're going to do the driver's side now and get her hooked up with our derby tank, get some fuel running to it, so we can pull it in the garage and tear apart those wheels, and we're pretty much done then. So as we're finishing up here in my father-in-law his pole barn, that is, shout out to him. No, he doesn't really know that I'm using it, I just kind of use it. But got the derby tank in here again. That has a 4-cylinder Camry fuel cell in it. That's the return line, which is run up to the motor, which this car has both the return and the main line. And then that's the main line, which is run up to the motor. I'll show the motor in the motor where the Cobalt hooks up. Got the airbag out, tricky little bugger. You just got to go just a little bit in, only about, I don't know, an inch and a half in, straight in, coat hanger. I use a piece of 9-wire, just break off and just press the clip in to pop it out, and then again unplug them. And again, to show the motor, so here's our main line, which goes right there. This guy was on him. This is just like a safety thing. Those, it's my understanding, they have like teeth on them, so they kind of clamp down in. So I cut right at the bottom of that, which will give me enough to bolt down with my high pressure little clamp here onto that, and that should be good. And then I'll kind of bend that down with a hammer, put some spray foam there, but run that over just in case, you know, the hood starts to bend, this and that. You don't want that anywhere near getting cut or pressed on. And then this is the return line. It runs right underneath the air box here, the air unit right behind the throttle body, which is under that. So my plan is I'm going to cut about right there, and then it's just a return, so it's not as kind of high pressure, at least typically not in my experience, as this guy, but I should still be able to clamp it good with my high pressure line there, and that should work fine. And then the excess lines I cut, which again, the derby tank's already off on the back, I'll get rid of. I'll spray through those lines water just to make sure there's no like fuel there, or it's extremely diluted if there is, as things will get hot up here and potentially sparks fly. So that is it. We'll get her off the ramp and into the garage so that we can get to the final and main stage, the front wheels, once we finish this up. So here we have her in the garage. So we are successful. Again, a pretty simple change of the fuel lines. If you got a Cobalt, I usually go under the car because so many motors, like the Cruiser that I've run, it's like on the back, underneath, or so far under the motor and the side that unless you take a bunch of stuff out, you can't get to it. But not the Cobalt. Little 2.2 Ecotech, not only a good motor, but here, again, main fuel line, just high pressure clamp there. That's my main line. And then I just cut where the return line comes out of this and into there. I just cut it there, put again the return line on my derby tank, got it tight, works great. And then battery, again, the great thing about the Cobalt, you just bring the battery lines forward. I just unhook the negative. I drill a hole right beside the existing hole that's already there that I use for the negative bolt there, just so it's kind of the same good ground like it is in the back. Unplug the wiring, pull all the wiring forward through the hole, and then that right there is just your main positive line. It's a nice thing about the Cobalt with the kind of strange setup with the battery in the back. You can just use all the existing lines. So I have them hooked up there. I gotta clean up. I'll put a block under my derby tank, and I actually use the existing seat hole there with the existing bolt for one of them. I'll put a block underneath there, and then I'll mount it up front here too. Take a look at that, but it's just sitting there for now. So good to go. Final couple things needed, pretty simple. The big one though is the wheels. So let's get them off and see what we got. Just to show, here is our task. And again, these Cobalts, this is their weakness, the aluminum spindle. It is, you can already see this one's actually not too bad, but a little bit deteriorates around where it bolts to the strut there. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna break loose the CV shaft there, the center of the wheel, and then we'll hit the 2 bolts for the brake caliper and set it aside. This guy here, hopefully, sometimes they usually spin, so hopefully he spins that bolt so we can just pop the tie rod out. And then the same thing with that, but worst case, I'll just cut that small bar as the last Cobalt. We did this, Lucas, my buddy, started, and then I kind of cleaned up a little bit with the control arm. That we just cut off. It wasn't even there, so not a big issue. So that's it, and there's the aluminum, and there is the steel. And I got the wheels here. This is off a Cavalier. Shout out to Haylett. He gave me the tires off his Cavaliers. He was putting on some bigger diggers. Appreciate it. As I'm straight stock, they're actually a nice set of stock tires as they go. But this is, again, the steel spindle, and that is, you just need that. These aluminum spindles, I mean, I think the Cobalt, the frame rails are pretty tough. You can see pretty good size. We'll weld our Caravan bumper up front. It's going to be tough. And even though the back's all rusty, crusty, you know, that's kind of most all these derby cars, but the wheels, just weak. I mean, I thought about running it, just kind of a quick build, run it, and then, you know, go from there, but you just get pressed in and your run's done. So do it right or don't do it at all. So these are actually off of Sunfire, I do believe. Sunfire and Cavalier. I think it's like 98 or 9 to 04. They will work. I might need to slightly do some stuff like I did before with the control arm, but we'll go from there. So here it is. Let's get to work. So I wanted to show the snafu, if you will, that I got in. These tie rods are a piece of trash. So again, bolts off, caliper off, no problem. The bolt on the ball joint there, no problem. Again, that support piece I just cut with the grinder there because the strut that I'm going to use with the spindle there, because it's a slightly different hole size. That strut off a Cavalier or Sunfire, I'm not sure which one, doesn't have that supporting piece, so it doesn't matter. And again, that'll just hang there. I've ran a Cobalt last year, no issue there. But these guys, I hit it with my different spray from 10W40 to the Freon, or not the Freon, the spray. I have it over here as I tried to hit this wheel too. Here, this freeze off, that's what it is. To try to kind of break it loose, hit it with WD-40 to try to break all that bottom loose. Even did this trick, shout out to Lucas. He mentioned, you know, you got to get pressure, torque on it because they'll start to spin as the grooves get kind of rusty, the bolt. So you can usually get it to break loose the bolt, but then it just spins inside the tie rod. So put the ratchet strap on there, ran under to the front to really pull down tight, hit it with all that spray, hit it with the gun. Because my buddy said, well, hit it with the gun and it should blow right through it, hopefully. Well, that didn't even work. Same thing, got it down, I don't know, about an inch, hit the older stuff, started spinning inside the tie rod. So my simple fix, again, this isn't the way you probably should do this. I took the grinder and I tried to cut through the side of the bolt as low as I can to leave enough grooves that I could still use this one, and I could. You can see there's the bottom tip that I cut through. But yeah, I can still use this, but the reason why I did it that way is I actually have, I don't have it near me, I actually have a tie rod I took off my Cobalt last year that's perfectly fine there. So I'm like, well, if this doesn't work, then I can just unscrew this tie rod and put that one on. So again, not ideal, but we're moving on. So in this big bolt, 30 millimeter, pulled that off first so that the wheel's good and tight, and put a screwdriver through there to lock it up if it's spinning on you. So we got everything off, so we're gonna pull it off now, and hopefully it's a little bit easier going now that we have that off. And there we have it. Twice as long as I was hoping it would take, but we have got it off. So there's the strut that was on it, and there again you can see these aluminum spindles. Look at how that thing's just eating away at it. And again, they're aluminum, one hard hit or even a decent rubbing, it might break. So now our rebuilding step, we're gonna first take the grinder and we are gonna carefully grind straight across the ball joint here, all three of those. Just set that CV shaft aside so we don't burn it up at all or damage it. And then should be able to punch that out. And then I'll just take my new ball joint, this guy here, and those holes will not be the same. So I'll kind of get it to where it's lined up good. I might have to drill new holes. We'll see. I had to drill new holes last time. And then we'll just bolt that on and we got our new ball joint. The reason why I got to change the ball joint is you see how big that one is in the Cobalt. And this is how small it is on the Sunfire or the Cavalier steel spindle. So that's that. First thing though, we got our strut there, and the holes, unfortunately, because it's got to match up the strut to the spindle, the holes are not the same here. I marked it. There's one there I got to drill just a small hole, and then one there, and then we'll put our bolts back on, and that should be good. Strut should be in a good place. And once it's all hooked up, holding pressure, the weight of the car on it, that won't be an issue. Not having perfect kind of lineup. So that is the task at hand, hoping it goes well. Again, I believe we can use that tie rod, even though I had to cut the end off. Probably gonna do the same to the other side now. If not, I have new tie rods for both sides. I took off the other Cobalt. Hoping it goes well. Here we go. And there we have her ready to go. So again, if you're someone that ever does this, not that my way's the perfect way, but I just sanded down, or grinded down rather, the top flush. I left the little bottom part there. Now these holes were pretty much dead on. I put these up, lined them up, and drilled down through with my titanium bit. This one though was a little bit more to the left, so if I would have drilled through the original hole, it would have been a little bit of like it would have been off. I would have had to have made that super big. So use a big washer on there, and they'll bolt down nice and good. So there we go. So we're gonna piece her back together. Hopefully she goes together good. And there is the finished product. So we have her on and seem to be all good to go. The bolts up here, again, didn't perfectly line up. I drilled my holes, and then it was just a tiny bit that was sticking up. So I first put my bolts on without the washer and kind of pressed or tightened down to press this piece down, and then loosen them up, put the washer on there. As I press this down, as there was a little space between the top of the strut and this, but I wanted to get a washer in there, so those are good and stable. And got the used the existing tie rod. I actually went and got new bolts, and I cranked down there tight because I said, even if I can't break it loose after as a 40-cent bolt, and I'll just cut through that tie rod, as I don't need it. It's already damaged, and I have an extra tie rod if I need it for another Cobalt. And then the bolts went through again. I believe this is off a Sunfire, and this I believe is off a Cavy, but they should be the same as my understanding. And had the brake caliper on this, just hooked the brake line back into it off of mine. So she's good to go. Again, that extra piece will just hang there. Shouldn't be an issue with anything. Whew. Was hoping to do that in about half the time, but we got her. Let's get the second wheel on, and she is ready to rip. So here is our finished wheel product, and the last little tidbits of what I'm going to do to wind down. First off, you will notice, yes, this wheel is pretty near straight. This one is not, and that's because of the tie rods. I needed to adjust them in more, this one in particular, to pull that wheel straight. However, they are so rusted that I could not get them to break loose. They kept breaking loose at the inner tie rod instead of the outer one separating. So I said, you know what? I'm kind of out of time getting it together. Next time, maybe we'll adjust that, but should be good. No issue there. In fact, I just ran my PT Cruiser that had a similar kind of right wheel slightly turned in, and boy, was that girl tough. So if this girl's half as tough as that one, that won't be, at the wheels that is, won't be an issue. But just to show the last couple things I do, I just loosen the air box here off the throttle body. And the reason why I did that was, one, I needed to tighten down my, again, I have my radiator lines looped. So I had those just thrown on there because whenever I sold the core support and the radiator, I just put that on there so nothing got in it. So I was able to get that tight there and there. And then again, the high pressure clamp at the filler. And again, you need that piece so that that side there, a little bit of pressure as it builds can come out. Otherwise you'll blow the line, which I did. But also wanted to show, I save, you see there's a piece right there of what's left. Whenever I'm done like these types of hoses, like for overflow and that I don't need, I like to keep at least some of those, handful or so at a time, because of reasons like this kind of plastic covering gets real brittle and breaks. And the motor, of course, is going to get hot, whether it's a good run or a, even a quick run. So I like to cover up those wires if I can. I just slit down through that rubber piece, and then I just kind of put it over it, and then I'll just tape it in a couple spots like I did here. So I did it here because the wiring was completely exposed, and then there's 3 sections on the back there, just so as the motor's getting hot, it's not kind of potentially melting one of those wires. And again, I'm running stock wiring, so that would take me out. So I'll tighten that back down, and that is it. We'll just kind of clean up the wiring up front here. The lines already had looped. Again, my small piece in there with high pressure clamps. So that's all done, so she's good. So last thing left up here, there's my Caravan bumper. I think that one's got six runs on it. We'll weld that to the front here. So we should be pretty hard at the nose. And hopefully those wheels, if they're half as tough as they were to get them set up, I'm gonna be all right up front. So last, just a couple things inside. Again, I'm gonna put a block under my tank. I'll bolt through the existing seat hole there. I kept a couple of the extra bolts there. And then I'll figure out up front, I might have to drill through there. I'm not really sure yet. I'll kind of play around with that, what's best. My battery box, I gotta take off of my son's car that he just ran, unbolt that. And I'll just bolt that in right here, probably long ways here instead of horizontal, but I'll look underneath to make sure I'm not messing with anything there, whatever's easiest. And then my plan is, just like I did the PT Cruiser, to run the toggle switch and the wiring. So I'll run the negative to the negative terminal, and then the positive up to the switch, and then to the pump. And that little toggle switch worked great on the Cruiser. That's the plan there. So that's at least my plan. I could direct wire it like before, but I already had the toggle switch wiring all set up with this tank, so I think I'll do that. And then just my bar, I'm gonna run across. You can see there I have it grinded down right there. Here's my bar, 55 inches perfect, so I'll sand down the outside and weld that as well. Press up the trunk, pull the wiring forward, otherwise she is at the verge of ready to go. Again, 07 PT Cruiser, Chevy Cobalt. Cruisers, I have one to run later, probably the next one. But hoping for a good run. Again, you never know. She's really rusty, in particular under the door, both sides. The back certainly is going to be soft, but we'll start with the rear end of the Chaos, and then hopefully have a hard nose and be able to have some fun out there. So that's it. Final moments here. I'll have a final build up if you have any interest. Hoping to have some fun.